Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at criticalblast.com. And I was gone last night. You didn't miss me, I know. But I was over on Keith Gleason's stream. So if you want to pop over there and check out his channel, you'll find everything you missed with me. And trust me, you don't care about it because it was all about shipping comics and writing books. And it was, I was on the other end of the mic. That's not what you come here for. You come here to find interesting people who are producing books and comics. And tonight we have somebody who's written some of the most interesting fantasy novels that I've read in 50 and none of your business years of reading books. And I'm very proud to have brought him on the show. Met 7 years ago at a science fiction convention and have been, in contact ever since. If I ever forget how long we've known each other, I just say, well, when did The Flash come out? Because we bonded over the pilot episode premiere of The Flash. So when was that? That was 7 years ago. My God, time flies. Anyway, welcome to the stream, David J. Peterson. David, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Squad Starbeam says epic noise. I hope that doesn't mean that we're making epic noise. My intro video went a little weird when I
it looked good to me. I was impressed.
It just sounded weird here. We got brand new internet provider here today, and I just changed the settings on the Wi-Fi. I'm like, okay, we'll see if it's better than what we had before. And so far, I'm kind of, it's okay so far, but I'm cautious.
Yeah, no, I thought it sounded good.
Technology is always something that's made out of eggshells whenever I consider changing something on it.
Yeah, don't touch. Everybody stand back. Yeah, 7 years ago, we were just talking about the first season of The Flash the other day that my wife and I were. That was a great season.
It really was. And it took a big dip. Not as big as some of the CW shows, I guess, but I want to say that I believe it's on an uptick this season.
Oh, really? Because I haven't watched it for a while, but I hear that the Superman series, the first season, is really solid, and I need to give that a try.
So far, that is too. A lot of people liking that. I've seen like the first 3 episodes of that one, and I've liked it so far. It's different. I don't know how they're ever going to do a crossover episode with him and the other CW shows because it's 14 years in the future. I mean, he's got teenage boys now, and he just got married in Crisis. So,
well, that's a good point.
I don't know how they're going to pull that off. But the Flash, the Flash was weird this year because the first 3 to 4 episodes were really last season's final episodes. Oh, because they cut production for COVID.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that is kind of weird.
So yeah, it was like, they start off with the same big bad, and it's kind of, you're already at climax point, and you didn't get a chance to rebuild back up to it. But now it's going into its new season phase, and we don't even know who the big bad is yet, or if there is one. It's just like the whole world is changing around it right now.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we've been, as I mentioned offline, we've started watching the Justice League Snyder Cut miniseries that's going on for 8 nights because I can't sit for that long, and have been really enjoying it. But they've been doing a lot more character development, and we both like the Flash in that one as well. I think Ezra Miller is and a completely different take than what we're used to on the CW show. But
and from what I've seen of the previews and the trailers, I was like, I expected a director's cut. I've seen enough DVDs. No, there's was that a scene they put in there? Okay, that was a nice scene. This looks like it's an entirely different movie.
It is. I mean, the DC movies take themselves very seriously. Even Deadpool joked that it's dark like a DC movie, but and I'm misquoting that, but it's a completely different film, and some of it is a little bit drawn out. I mean, some of it you're like, okay, I can understand why this didn't make the theater cut, but a lot of it is important backstory, and they've done a good. I don't know. We're probably about to the halfway point. They did a good job, and I really liked some stuff they've done with the Flash so far. I hope they move forward with the movie.
I do too, and in fact, if the movie's going to do this whole multiversal thing, which everyone keeps talking about, they've got to do one thing, and it's so easy to do because they've already filmed it. They've got to include the Ezra Grant Gustin crossover scene from Crisis.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I was actually wondering if, Grant would show up in that movie if they're doing a multi.
He doesn't even have to.
I heard a great rumor the other day that they're going to, kind of like they do in the comics, that they will use Flash's Flashpoint storyline to reboot the movie universe.
Yes, that would be good.
So, which would give it a clean break, and it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and it is, the Flashpoint story is what they're trying to go with.
Right.
That's why there's so many different Batmans. He's going to go back and, I've heard that Michael Keaton may not be the Batman in the film now. He might have to back out of it.
Oh, okay. I know for a while they were talking about him and, who else? Hi. I have help.
Pattinson.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Pattinson is supposed to be the Batman in the new DC universe.
Yes. Well,
yeah.
And then of course, Affleck. Affleck was supposed to be in the Flashpoint one.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that should be fun.
I'm still waiting for Stargirl though. I really truly enjoyed season 1 of Stargirl. Did you catch any of that?
We did catch the first handful of episodes. Really enjoyed it. I am terrible at watching TV. It's just a matter of not having enough time.
Yeah.
And so I'll go upstairs and watch a show with my wife because my office is in the basement, and she'll binge shows, like literally like watch 3 or 4 episodes. That's not going to happen. So I'll watch an episode with her on Netflix or whatever streaming service, and I'll be like, that was really some good binging. David, that's not binging. And so we kind of banter about that, but yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty selective with what I watch because I just don't take the time to watch television that much. Not that I have anything against it. I mean, it's a great entertainment medium. It's just, I get that window to write books, and if I'm not writing books, then, or playing video games or hanging out with my wife, then I'm sleeping.
Yeah. I used to get a lot more done before I got Netflix. And I was just like, click. Oh, look, I'm watching Gotham for the second time around. Have an active chat tonight. Thank you everybody for showing up here. Ryan Wynn is in the chat. Yes, I'm. This is pretty much. This is settled. This is.
Oh, there we go.
For the next year. Frog G, hail to the chat. Squad Starbeam. Yes, you're seeing Marvel the dog. He's already a sensation. Yeah, Marvel does her own thing.
Oh yeah, she really
Joan
does.
Must know Marvel.
Yeah, that Joanne, that would be my daughter.
Okay, yeah, I can't see Pattinson without being Batman without seeing him sparkle. Yeah,
Of time and attention. Thank you, dear. That's my wife.
He didn't turn into a bat before, did he? In the
no. Oh, that's right. So this can still play on the whole vampire thing.
Exactly. Oh, I don't like vampire stories. Nobody ever does them right. I wrote one, and it was a short story in an anthology, and it was just like, what if vampirism was just a lifestyle choice? you just chose to be one and start drinking blood.
Yeah, that would be different.
Yeah, well, he was psychotic, and he was an evil person.
That is a DC Universe dark story right there.
Aren't they all? Well, were you on that panel with me at the convention where we were talking about, the difference between the DC and the Marvel movies?
Yeah, I think I was.
Yeah, because we're like, the whole DC thing was like, we're going to make Superman, but, we must put a dark costume on him, and we must dim the lights down, and he must be ridden with angst.
And it's really funny you say that, because as I was writing the Angst series, the Henry Cavill Man of Steel movie came out, and the Kansas City Star, our local newspaper, had a big, huge 1-page photo with Henry Cavill on it, and it said "Man of Angst." And I'm like, oh, that's the wrong guy on the cover.
Yes, it is. And let's let people know exactly what the inside joke is here, because Squad Starbeam is wanting to know your thought process when making a new book.
Oh yeah, writing. We can talk about that too.
We can talk about that because that's kind of what you do.
Yeah, and my muses look mean. Hi, Christy. So the first series I wrote is Angst, And just to tell you a little bit about it for anybody that isn't familiar. So I read a lot of fantasy books growing up when I was a kid, and most of them were coming of age stories. You know, you've got young person with great power and potential, and they meet a wizard who sends them on a path to becoming a hero. And Angst is the guy that got passed up for all of that. So he's in his 40s. He's going through a midlife crisis, and he knows that the only thing that would really make him happy is to be a knight in shining armor. So it's kind of a be careful what you wish for sort of story. And I completed the series, 2 years ago. I think 2 years ago, maybe 3. And it's 5 books, and it was fun. I mean, there's each story each book stands on its own. They're connected, but there's also an overall story arc about, you know, Angst and how he becomes who he becomes. And yeah, it was a good
folks,
time.
I have read 4.5 of these 5 books already. And if you want good fantasy reading, the link to David's Amazon page is below us in the description. Go out and check out the Angst series. If you liked the Weiss Hickman Dragonlance Chronicles books, this is right in that line. I say I've read 4.5 of them, David, because my thinking is that if I don't finish book 5, it's not over.
So I did leave a way to write a little bit of an additional story. I actually, when I first started writing, I had this 10-book arc planned where it was going to be a first series of 5 books and the second series of 5 books. And I don't think I'm going to write that second series of 5 books, but there might be another story in there that explains some of the unique things that happen as it wraps up. But this book is actually the definitive end of the series. So even if I write something else, it'll be tied to it, but it won't be anything that happens after the ending, if that could be confusing enough.
Christy says she has all of them. She was in all of them. Well, no,
she was certainly in book 4.
And I remember that's one of the reasons why my friends and I were drawn to your table. I had a table like across the hall from you there.
You know, it's funny how that happened. When Christy and my muses are around, that people come and visit. It's like they like talking to me and looking at them, and then they find they like talking to them too. And yeah, no, they're
chainmail bikinis are just like magnets at these science fiction conventions.
And there's I've got some great friends, you know, they're to show up and do that and help me out. And, you know, they not only help me with critiquing my books, they show up in chainmail bikinis and help me sell them. I mean, yeah, I'm eternally grateful.
Did you ever get the 3D scan that?
Nope, never showed up. And that, yeah, somebody actually bought a 3D printout of Christy. I think it's like this big, I think. And, sorry. And, but they were supposed to send that scan so we could look at making action figures. And
exactly.
Yeah, didn't happen.
Because I have a friend now who does 3D prints for all these comic book characters that we talk to people about. And I'd be like, if you've got the scan, he could just go straight from it and print.
Yeah, technology has changed even in those 7 years. So it's pretty cool with what they can do these days.
Well, I had my little mini me, and it's lost somewhere. I'll never find it again. I even had it painted. You never got to see it after I painted it.
I just thought it was fun watching Christy on that pedestal having to stand still as they scanned her and it spun around.
Yes.
That was pretty great.
In fact, somewhere in the chronology of videos on this very channel, if you go all the way back, you can find video of Christy on that platform being scanned. And it's interesting how the crowd amasses more and more the longer she's scanning.
Yeah, she does that. It happens.
It's the technology. People love to see technology in action.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But so yeah, the Angst series, that was your first published work?
Yes. And then in between the Angst series, so just to torture everybody, when I finished book 4, and I had a pretty good cliffhanger going into book 5, I wrote Claude Makes a Friend.
Yes.
So that technically book. My 4th book. A lot of people feel it's like the best thing I've written. It's a fun story. For anybody not familiar, it's about it's in a world where everybody can do magic and all types of magic are possible. It's a middle-aged fantasy story. And Claude is the only kid in his school who can't do magic, so he gets bullied for that. And so the story is about how he deals with being bullied and growing up and becoming the person that he grows up to be. In the story, he more than anything, he wants a friend. And so he makes one out of clay and she comes to life, but she doesn't last for very long at first. And so each chapter in the book is only 10 chapters long.
Right.
And each chapter is a different year of his life. So from age 10 and age 9 to 60 something, it tells like the entirety of his life story in those 10 chapters. And his friend who is made out of clay, Ada, it tells her story as well.
Yeah, that really was. Did that win any awards that I just didn't hear of? Because it should have won several in the kids lit and young adult.
I'll tell you the award that that I got from it that was the most amazing thing. So Planet Comic-Con is the big con here in Kansas City. Usually like 100,000 or more people show up. And a teacher bought a copy of Claude Makes a Friend. And, to share with her class. And I, of course, was flattered by that. Well, later towards the end of the summer, she talked the school into buying a whole bunch of copies and they made it required reading for their entire 5th grade that year.
Oh, nice.
And then the following year, the teachers voted and made it required reading for all of the classes. So that was rewarding. I actually, every year I get to talk to the teacher's class and talk to her students, and the questions I get and the questions I get about the characters. I mean, it's been a while since I've read it, and if I don't reread it before going in, they know more about the story than I do. But it's fun to see that a lot of them have different ideas of what the characters' origins were and why they did what they did, and I find that to be the most rewarding thing that I've experienced.
Yeah, and it's got one of those very neat little bows at the end of it that tie it up in this whole cycle of life things, or recycle of life, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Well, and the kids, so this year when I went to visit, they had watched some of my YouTube videos, and they actually threatened to abduct Marvel, my corgi, if I don't write another book in the series. So not ready yet, but I've been giving it some thought.
I'm sorry, I write another book in what series?
Write another Claude story.
So that would have to take place somewhere in the middle of the story that's already there. Or not. Okay. You've got mysterious plans.
I do have something planned if I do it. And I set a set of precedents there that it could be followed on if you remember the statues.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I did read the book a couple of times. So.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm looking at your office too. You've got one of the coolest looking offices, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. I work full time in addition to writing full time. And last spring, when we all started working from home, or a lot of people did because of COVID, ended up deciding that I needed to do something to my office that was more welcoming than ugly old wallpaper and, stained ceilings and old bookshelves. So I spent some time cleaning it up, and we refer to it, my wife and I refer to it as the Bat Cave, because it's kind of got dark blue walls, and but for me, it's very soothing and comforting to come in here because it's nice and open now. I used to have a desk in the middle and it's gone. I did that so I could do a little virtual reality gaming. It's also modular, so I can do gaming back there. I have a desk set up here with a couple of monitors, and I can record YouTube videos, and it's pretty flexible. So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one who's supposed to be doing a show every night, and this is my microphone, and you've got one of these, golden age of radio things coming across here with a big sweeping arm. Like, what are you doing online that, or is that just for Zoom meetings at work?
Oh no. For Zoom meetings, I use this thing. It's my gamer headset, but it's comfortable. It's a Steel Series, I think 7. So I highly recommend it. They didn't pay me to say that. I do not have this in front of my face when I'm on a regular Zoom call because I think it's a little over the top, but I also think it has the best sound quality. So I thought it'd be appropriate for this. What I do use it for is YouTube videos. I do a little bit of voiceover. Like I've recorded a few chapters of Claude and Angst and posted those to YouTube. And so when I do that, I bought some equipment that I could record with, so that way it doesn't. I wanted it to sound good. But I started a YouTube channel last summer after I finished remodeling my office, and I've made some. I started a series called "Believe in Your Story," so it's to help other writers figure out some of the stuff that I messed up with as I got started with my writing. And so far, I've only done like 4 episodes, and I have more planned. Here again, it's just how much time do you have to work on this stuff?
Sure. How many how many rejections did you get before you went off onto the route that you did with Thanks?
None, because I never submitted my book to a publisher. And didn't even. When I finished Angst, I didn't know what to do with it. I'm like, do I send it to a publisher? There's one of the people who read an early draft and critiqued it, and he was very thorough. He also said, you'll have no problems getting this published. And I'm, not being a publisher, it's that was at least a very flattering thing to say, but you never know, sometimes it's very hard to get published. I think it is for a lot of people, but I'm impatient, and it took me about a weekend to figure out how to throw it in an ebook and post it to Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all the various, stores. And I have absolutely no regrets.
I was just about to ask if you ever regretted not going the traditional route with it.
It's it hasn't made me like financially wealthy, but it has been so rewarding in other ways. I've got a personal relationship with so many of my readers that I don't think you get that when you go with a bigger publisher. And don't get me wrong, nothing against traditional publishing, nothing against pursuing traditional publishing, but I'm really happy with the books that I've published on my own and the results from them. I've found between making them available on Amazon and other sites and going to conventions, I've built up a nice audience of people that, I enjoy talking to when I get a chance to, or when I see them at cons, or sometimes they'll send me an email, and, I may not always see a review from them, but they might send me an email or drop me a message on Messenger telling me how they felt about the book. And I like that.
Yeah. And, sometimes the best review is when they see you at a convention again and they buy the next book.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, nothing makes me happier than when people buy the series like after they come back and I finished book 1, I need the rest of them. Thank you.
Yeah. Not book 2, the rest of them.
Yeah. That's the great compliment.
Well, it's really, I don't want to sound like I'm gushing over the guest here, folks, but the Angst series really is good fantasy writing, and it's there's different kinds of fantasy writing, and I've tried to read them. I've read Tolkien because you have to. You have to read Tolkien. You can skip the poetry, and it goes a lot faster. But any of the new stuff, if I pick it up and it starts off with a glossary, I don't need to read this book because if I can't understand what you're talking about, even if you're introducing alien concepts, if I don't get it from context, then you didn't do something right. And you didn't have to do any of that. You just jump right into the story and we grab us by the throat and drag us along inexorably behind you, like Mike Barron says that writing should be.
Well, thank you. There are a lot of stories out there, fantasy too, that'll be like life changing. And yeah, I didn't write that book. I wanted to write something that was fun, entertaining, that people would get a laugh out of, and might and with even a tiny hint of something deeper, like Angst's whole goal is he always thought he was meant to do something more or something better, and I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, and you get to relate to everybody though, not just Angst. I recall that I was in. I want to say it was either in the middle of book 1, probably was in the middle of book 2, and I told you, I said, I just got into this chapter. You son of a bitch.
I get cursed at sometimes. I'm okay with that. Another flattering thing that I get from readers is, this made me cry so much. And I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Writers live off the tears of their readers. So
Absolutely.
yeah, we're kind of like vampires, but just, for salt water.
Oh, so we talked about the Angst, we talked about Claude, but this new book you're into now, this Watson's World, this is a different kind of fantasy entirely now.
Yeah, it's fantasy and a little bit of near future sci-fi and a VR story and pop culture romance, and it kind of is wrapped in an 80s action movie. So I threw the whole kitchen sink into this thing. It was fun to write. It took me a little longer than I expected because there were so many elements, and that was my first attempt at taking a stab at even just a little bit of science fiction. So I had to do some research to get it right. But the main category it falls under is game lit and lit RPG. And it's, if you're not familiar, it's a very fast growing genre of books, kind of on its own, but it's also connected to fantasy and connected to sci-fi. And it's if you're not familiar, it's basically most of the story takes place, or all of the story takes place, in a game world, in a game environment with game rules. So it's like you were playing virtual reality, but then you ended up living inside that virtual reality game. And so you actually have health points, and you actually have mana points to draw from. And, you make decisions that affect, what spells you might have or what attacks you might be able to do. And some of the books get what they call crunchy, which stands for number crunching. And they get very stat heavy. Mine does not. Mine is pretty light in that category, but it's a fun genre to write for because you get to include all of these different elements. And Entros was extra fun because I got to include a lot of pop culture references. There are plenty of movie quotes and callbacks to some of my favorite films and TV shows growing up. And I had a good time doing some of that stuff.
Well, I think also you're at a good place to introduce a book like this because we had a tremendously successful movie in my estimation, because I just love watching it, with Ready Player One.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like right on the heels of Ready Player One to say, oh, look, someone's trying to grab the coattails. It was, time has passed and you had a totally different story.
Yeah, so Ready Player One, a lot of the lit RPG community considers it like a game lit story. So game lit is the overarching umbrella that, like, you have fantasy and then you've got epic fantasy. You've got game lit and then you've got lit RPG. And so game lit, I really enjoyed Ready Player One. I haven't read Ready Player Two yet, but I enjoyed the first book and movie quite a bit. And I think that it helped propel a lot of what's been going on with the growth of lit RPG, because it just gave it that much more visibility. But lit RPG has been around for quite a while, and I want to say that it kind of started in Russia, actually, where it's like insanely popular. And a lot of authors get their books transcribed and published in America, and they do really well. Actually, the first lit RPG book that I read, The Way of the Shaman, was originally written in Russian.
Have you had your first Watson's Worlds book translated to Russian so you can cash in on that market?
No. It's and part of the reason I'm not in a hurry to do that is because I was talking about number crunching, and a lot of those books are a lot more focused on the stats than Interest Online. And the number crunching and the progression, I think, can be fun. And I do have some of that, but I just didn't go too deep with it. Math is hard.
Yes, as Barbie said. So you talked about how, people, there's health points and stuff like that. If you, what's the trope? If you die in the game, you die for real. Is that what we're?
You come back. I mean, so that's one of the tropes is like in a video game, you would come back to life. They've got lit RPG, game lit books fall into so many different categories. So you've got portal novels where you're actually transported to that world and now you're living that life. Mine is a VR novel where they use like a device, like a pod is what I call them, to sync up with that world or to arrive there virtually. And then it feels like it's real, but their body is still, back on Earth.
So different from Jumanji, where they actually are sucked into. Yeah,
so Jumanji would be considered a portal novel for game lit.
Okay. And, we were talking a little bit before the show on, how lit RPG differs from literature that's based on an RPG. And I was going all the way back to the Weiss and Hickman Dragonlance novels again.
Oh, I love those books.
Me too, which is, why I loved Angst. But, those are based on a game series. But there's a difference between something that's based on a game series and something that's based on the game.
Yeah.
Lit RPG.
Well, one thing is that just came to mind is that they didn't know they were based on a game world, Yeah. And a lot of the characters that get transported and all of a sudden they've got game-like statistics, they recognize that.
And so game-like more self-aware.
Oh, yeah. Not always, but often. It certainly is in VR stories where, you use VR gear to transport to that other world or to connect with it. They know they're playing a video game. I mean, and so that's a big part of it. And I think that, the Dragonlance and the Dungeons and Dragons books are just stories that, they don't really have, from what I remember, it's been a little bit, but they don't really go into the numbers of like that with health.
No, they were just characters.
They were characters. And so that's like creating another world, and like that's traditional fantasy. Yeah.
If you come right down to it, you could have told the Dragonlance stories without the Dragonlance banner at the top of it. It didn't have to say AD&D anywhere on it because it had absolutely nothing to do with AD&D, the game, other than a brand imprint.
Absolutely. And so that's the major difference, is that these are definitely is the video game elements that go into it. No matter how strict or loose those elements are, that's what is a lot of what makes it game lit.
So where did you, what struck you to try this particular genre? Was there like a light switch moment that you can recall, or was it just like the next thing you were working on and found yourself going down that path?
Well, I had started reading some game lit and some lit RPG books, and I'm like, this is fun. I've got loads of ideas that I'd like to write. But I had an idea for the Watson's Worlds books that was a little bit unique, because I didn't want to just write something that didn't contribute to the genre. And so, Interest Online a little different than a lot of the lit RPG books. It hits on some of the tropes, but not on all of them. You know, like I had mentioned before we started, that one of the popular tropes with the lit RPG books is that the protagonist, you know, finds a way to become super powerful really early in the book, and they're overpowered throughout the book, and you know, it it you lose some of the danger aspect and the risk involved in being a hero. Those stories can be a lot of fun because, I mean, it's fun to go in and have the cheat code to play a video game sometimes, right?
Sure.
But it's also fun to see a hero really struggle. And I like to make my heroes struggle like crazy.
Yes, you do.
If I could torture them just a little bit more, I'm doing it right, you know? And so Entrance Online is a fantasy VR story, but it falls into this bigger category of Watson's Worlds, which it's a number of VR worlds that are interconnected. And so you were asking what inspired me.
Yeah.
It's this whole overarching storyline of Watson's Worlds that I thought it was different enough that it would be fun to tackle.
I have not read the Watson's World book yet. I'm correcting that. So I don't know the plot, but from what you've been describing, it is putting me in mind of another book series that I've started and haven't finished. Jack Chalker's The Wonderland Gambit.
Yeah.
Which it's in it, and that was, you know, that was one of those virtual realities within a virtual reality within a virtual reality. And it was two teams. And I don't know what the political motivations were behind the two of them, but they were going in after the creator to try to pull him out. He had basically gone into a virtual reality that looked like reality. And inside of it, he built a virtual reality that looked like reality.
Yeah.
And so the two teams is like, you know, in between the worlds, they were all fully cognizant and aware, and they were going through like this crazy landscape trying to get to the next world. Once you get to the new world, you forget who you are. You forget everything. You forget that you're in a mission. If you got killed in the last one, if you killed the other people in the last one, you retain your memories. So, you know, obviously killing somebody first right off the bat, you got a huge advantage for the next one.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, so in this story, it kind of goes back and forth between, you know, what happens in the real world and what happens in Entrance. And it's about a guy who, I mean, he loves his life. I mean, he's a software developer for Entrance, and then at night he plays the game as a mage character. It's actually, I think, a wizard. And so, you know, kind of his perfect life. He's got an intern he kind of flirts with, and she plays the game with him, and they've got a good friendly relationship. And things go awry when they announce that they're shutting down Entrance because it's being replaced by a new game called Every World Online that's coming online in like 6 months. And so he is playing the game and discovers a hidden quest that he can't access. And so when he goes back to work the next day, he does some research and finds out that there's a bunch of code that's in a software repository that never got checked in. So it's a big patch with a world event and this quest, and it would make the quest accessible if he checked it in. But, you know, that would be, you don't just check in code to a major production environment like that. I don't always test my code, but when I do it in prod.
Yes, absolutely. We're two IT guys, folks. We know this is a self-insert of sorts.
And so he gets a warning that he's going to be fired, and he goes ahead and checks it in.
Oh, well, yeah, nothing to lose now.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's him following that quest chain and how it affects both his interests and the Watson's Worlds as a whole. And, you know, there's a hero story involved. There's a little bit of romance involved. There's a lot going on, but it's pretty fun.
This sounds like it would make a great television series, actually.
Oh, somebody said that in a review. A couple people have on Goodreads and Amazon. So yeah, that would be fun. The next step is it's going to be an audiobook.
Yeah. Now you've mentioned that you're doing some recording for audiobooks. Are you and you had some audiobooks done by other actors, but now you're doing some of your own?
The first two Angst books were narrated or performed by Michael Troughton. His dad was the second actor to play Doctor Who.
Yeah, Patrick.
And so, yeah. And Michael, great guy, does an amazing job. And the first two audiobooks are a lot of fun. I was considering doing the narration, and it would have been a narration, not a performance of Entrus. And I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. And so I was trying to get a few of the chapters right and, get the voices right. It's just, I can't do voices consistently. I read all the Harry Potter books to the kids and they'll tell you how good and bad it was.
That's the thing that takes me out of the story when I listen to audiobooks. There's two kinds, obviously. There's the radio play where you have different voices. And then you got, like the guy reading the Harry Potter and he's like, Harry Potter went in to talk to Hermione. Hello, Harry. How are you? I'm like, no, don't do that, please.
Some do it really well, and some don't do it as well. And so that lit RPG readers and fans love audiobooks, probably more than ebooks. They're just voracious for them. And so I know I needed to do something, and it was really timely. Podium Audio, who is an audiobook publisher, reached out, and we have an agreement that they're going to be publishing the Watson's Worlds audiobooks. So that's in pre-production right now, and I don't know who the narrator or the performer is yet, but they're actively working on that. So hopefully we find out something soon. And they've worked with people like Nathan Fillion, to do audiobooks. The most recent one, one of the more recent audiobooks they came out with, which was Lit RPG, was with Felicia Day. And so, who has a huge fan following, obviously she was a great choice. But they have just a very broad and rich group of performers that they work with. And I'm excited to see what they do. It'll be fun.
Joan saying an anime version would be very cool of that. So.
Oh, that would be fun.
And you read Harry Potter perfectly, Dad.
Aw.
So, yeah, it's interesting when someone else does your audiobook for you. I did a book called Time Hunter: The Sideways Door. It was in the Time Hunter series for Telos Publishing in Great Britain. It was a Doctor Who spinoff, and they did the audiobook version of it, and I got the copy of it, and it was by Tracy Childs, who had been in Doctor Who as well. So
that's cool.
Apparently a Doctor Who tradition of doing audiobooks.
They do a lot of audiobooks.
Hang on just a second. I'm losing the light, as you can tell.
It's getting dark in there.
Don't let the sun go down on me here.
Let's not make it too romantic.
It was light when I started, and I guess I just assumed that it would always be so.
You were saying about audiobooks.
Yeah, and I was just tickled to death that Tracy Childs was reading my words, and I listen to that in the car, and hearing somebody else. There's only so many times you can do it, though, at least for me, because it's like the first time it's like, this is cool, she's reading my book. And then it's like, this is the first time I've heard those words spoken out loud, and they really don't sound right now.
It is a little bit different, but it's nice. There are a lot of people who either don't have the time to read or can't, and it's nice to make that available, to that audience. And it should be cool to see what Podium does.
Well, I'll be looking forward to that. Will that be coming out around the time that you have the second print novel done, or do you have a a schedule?
I do have a schedule, but I won't keep to the schedule.
Yeah.
I have too many unknowns. Between the day job and other things that I'm like, I will get this done by this summer. Is it summer already? How did that happen? No, the most important thing to me is when writing is to get it right, at least to the point where I feel good about it. And that, nothing has been lost. And so they'll get it. They could very likely get that first one done before the second one. But I think we're going to try to coordinate so that the audiobook and the ebook and print version all come out at roughly the same time when the second book comes out.
Okay. How much, in ratio format, how much do you rely on online sales versus convention appearances for moving books?
Well, so back when there were conventions.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going with it.
Is that my sales were probably 60% convention. I got to the point where we were doing pretty good, especially at the bigger cons, and I have worked really hard to make that shift so my marketing is more directed towards online sales, and I've had some pretty good success with interests because of that.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, how big of a hit basically the convention shutdowns had. I know they've had a lot of writers have got boxes of books that are just sitting in their house now that they can't move.
A couple years before that hit, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So I was actually going to slow down going to the cons anyway. And so this has kind of been put into play for a while for me for pushing for, directing the marketing to online as opposed to going to the cons. I mean, I still will go to cons, but I probably won't be vending anymore. It just takes a lot out of me.
Sure. Go and enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll go and enjoy it and see friends and such. And there's a con I go to up in Iowa called DemiCon, one of my favorites. And I will never stop going to that convention, but I may not be bringing books with me.
Yeah, I hear you. So when you were diagnosed with the Parkinson's, how did that impact your writing? I mean, did it light a fire? Did it put this little tick tock thing going in the back of your head?
I mean, it does affect my writing in several ways. Cognizantly, it hasn't, struck me too hard. I'm still able to put together full sentences some nights. But my energy levels wane, especially based on what meds I'm taking at the time. And so sometimes I've got a lot of energy and I take advantage of that. Sometimes I don't. And that's like my kryptonite, because I'm always very on, I'm always very go. And to have to sit down on the couch is very hard for me to accept. So it slowed me down a little bit because of that. And the typos aren't great.
Well, you always said write drunk, edit sober.
Well, yeah. And, sometimes that helps. And sometimes it really doesn't.
Especially if you got to take some meds now. You can't be doing the drunk part no more.
Well, you feel really great, but only for a little while. But it has also driven me, eventually someday in the far, far distant future, it's going to be a lot harder for me to write books. And it's not that hard for me to do it now. So I want to do that as I can. I put a lot of effort into it now because I can enjoy it now.
Yeah. Now you're prolific. I mean, the books you put out are they're not just good, they're thick and good. But at the same time, it's like the David J. Peterson discography is 7 books. Which isn't many. I mean, when you look at, folks like, Ellison and King and do you ever sit there and wonder, like, because you're working hard at getting these out and you're keeping, a regular writing schedule. Do you ever wonder, like, how the fuck did they do this?
Well, okay. So I beat myself up over this a lot. So if I stop and cry for a second, don't let it bother you. Okay. No, it's, I mean, for me, it's because I'm working full time. And, you know, my job, if like most people, full time is not full time. You know, my 50 hours a week takes its toll. And when I work evenings or weekends, not that it happens all the time, but when I do, you know, that's my writing time. And when you get done at the end of the day, you don't always have the energy to sit down and do your passion project, like writing books or whatever it is that you want to do. But I still have done my best to make it happen, and it just takes a little longer. Folks like Stephen King, I mean, that's what he does for a living. Yeah. And so I know that if I were doing this full time, it would be a little easier to come out with 2 or 3 books a year, even at the length that I write.
I was telling myself that last year when, you know, it was like everybody stay home. I'm like, well, I'm going to get a lot done this year because I'll just be in front of the computer all the time. That didn't work for me either. But
yeah, I mean, ideally, one would think if, you know, I'm writing 15 hours a week now and it takes me a year to write a book. If I were writing 40 hours a week, I could probably get more writing done. I also think I would be in better habits. But I because when I get pulled away for, you know, to do other projects like for work, it's hard to get back in that mind zone where, okay, now I'm focused on the book again.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hats.
If you're in a flow.
Yeah.
You can't be pulled out of a flow. And, you know, if you're in IT or have another job similar, you're always on the job. Your phone might ring and you have to take your head out of the plot and put it to work. Yeah, and you know, when at Archon, one of the earliest interviews I did, also on this channel, I got to speak with Harlan Ellison.
I remember that. That was that same year.
Yeah, and I asked him, you know, it's like my first question was, you know, how did you find the time to do all of this stuff? And it was the worst possible question I could have asked. What I really wanted to ask was, you know. And I've played this over in my head so many times, David. It's like, you know, I wish I could go back and just say, what time management skills would you pass along to the next generation of writers? Because his response to my, how do you find the time to do it was, well, that's a stupid question. and I was like, I knew it would be.
You know what? That's not necessary.
Well, it's okay because I went in knowing what I was probably going to get.
Yeah.
I was fine with it. It was Harlan.
Sure.
And his wife was the sweetest person in the world unless you pissed her off. And I saw somebody do that when I was at the convention. So I was like, she was like a badass Mary Poppins.
That's awesome.
She's British and tough.
And maybe I don't know. I don't have a justification for that. I guess the thing is that, you know, when you're doing something live and you only have a short window to do it, and it's somebody that you admire that you might be nervous or whatever, you're not going to get it perfect. And I would think they would know that. I mean, it's one thing if they're asking something that's offensive, but I think it's something else if they ask something, you know, that's innocuous that maybe is a misspoken.
Well, he did go on to give examples of, you know, how he did things and what he did.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good.
He was also in a bit of a hurry.
Yeah,
because I caught him coming out of a panel, but that's where he told me.
You tackled him and held him down and got the interview. It's nice that he did speak to you, and that's cool that you got the time.
And I'll always be able to say that I'm one of the people who got to interview Harlan Ellison.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of these days, you know, I'll be saying, hey, I got to sit down. I had multiple times I sat down with David J. Peterson. Yes, you're reading that book. Yeah, let me tell you about David.
Well, I will always be available to talk.
Well, if you're going to how often do you do your YouTube shows? And can you put the channel in the private chat here?
Yeah, let me see if I can grab that. And the answer to that is yes. So here's another thing. I mean, I would love to be doing them every week or so. I do really enjoy doing the videos, but I don't always have the time to do the videos. So I was doing really good with coming out with one, every month. And then after the audiobook deal with Podium, I'm like, I need to write this next book faster. I think that would be a really good use of my time. And so that's really been where my focus is. My wife is like, stay laser focused. I'm like, okay, you're right. And so it'll be a little bit before I come out with another YouTube video. But I'm not done. I've got a whole bunch written up, a bunch of scripts, because I have a hard time doing that off the cuff.
Your setup there for your YouTube videos and the rest of your office it reminds me of somebody who's in your backyard that does it on a regular basis. And if you haven't been on his show,
okay,
I would love to hook you guys up. But Jason Hunt, who does Sci-Fi for Me TV, yeah, he's right out there in your neck of the woods. I mean, you probably pass each other at the donut shop on occasion.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that would be fun. I'd like that.
I will make sure he knows you.
I got things laid out, so I'm set to make more videos, and I can put it together pretty quick. But it's taking the time to edit and clean it up and try to make myself not look too much like an idiot.
Oh, thank you for reminding me about that. I've done lives so long now that I've totally forgotten how to do edits, because that's what I used to do. I used to record them and then take them home and chop them up.
Yeah.
Now it's like just put it out there into the world and be casual with it. But here in the Ozark Mountains, there's all this tourist thing here and there, and you don't drive off the side of the mountain, you might run into something really cool.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I stopped at a candy store, middle of nowhere, Arkansas, top of the mountains, and I'm in there getting like $24 worth of chocolates, which is what a pound costs. I'm just going to take it back home for dinner. I mean, I know it was for somebody. Right. And there's all this artwork on the wall, and some of it was drawn on like celluloid. And I'm looking at that, and they said, "Oh, you want to talk to Dr. Greer?" I said, "Well, I guess this is his art." And he's 82 years old. I went back just last Tuesday and did an interview with him in his studio.
Okay.
He was an art teacher in the 70s in Arkansas, and they were paying him like 3 cents a day for art supplies. He's like, I can't do anything with that. So he taught the kids how to do animation. And they were making animated cartoons in his class, the only one in the world, only high school class in the world that was teaching animation and making stuff. And they got permission from Ray Stevens to do, if you've seen the animated videos for The Streak and Tarzan, that was his class that did that.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, okay, sure.
So I've got that all on, camera, and now I finally got it off my camera and onto the PC, which is a lot harder than just plugging the cable in and dragging and dropping, apparently. Because if it's bigger than 2 meg, you can't do it anymore.
Sure.
They've improved the technology.
Yeah, I've been messing around with, I don't know what you use for editing. I've been messing around with Blackmagic editing software, and I did video editing back in college, which means that none of it is relevant anymore because technology has changed so much.
You won't believe what I use.
Oh, what do you use?
PowerPoint.
For editing videos?
For editing videos.
I don't believe you.
I will make a video with PowerPoint.
Okay.
In fact, I've done animated cartoons with PowerPoint before.
Oh, that's cool.
In fact, let me show you the. Now, this isn't video in the sense of the word that we're talking about here, but I've been doing some video intros for some of the people I interview, like this one here for Wyatt Holliday's got a crowdfunded comic called Eternal Armor, and he just had some nice graphics that were on the page for me to grab. I'm like, oh, I could actually do something with this. So, see.
You said you did that with PowerPoint?
Yeah, that was PowerPoint.
And that I wouldn't believe you because I still don't believe you.
Okay.
I'm kidding. No, that's really impressive.
That was just slideshow, but I do import like camera video in there, and I'm like, cut it at this point, make a slide out of it, then transition it. And I'm like, my animation pane is like thousands of lines over here. I'm like, 24th of a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should check out Black Magic Studio. It's free.
Oh, you just sold it to me.
There's a learning curve there, but it does everything. Now they've got a licensed version that you can purchase. But it's really, once you get a hang of it, I think you'll really like it.
That sounds good to me. Because I just use PowerPoint for like easy transitions and stuff. And you just save the PowerPoint slideshow as a MOV or an MP4.
And it's Blackmagic Design, by the way, not Blackmagic Studio is the version that one of the versions you can acquire. But yeah, great software.
Blackmagic Design. Heroenberg, don't go stealing Testify's shtick now. He'll be showing up and getting upset. Heroenberg, thanks for being in the chat. Heroenberg is our wrench. And he also has a comic book series called Heroenberg.
I like it.
Which he's a multimedia guy, David. He's got a comic book series that's kind of like AC's Fem Force. All the heroes are women, and they all live in this same city and they're fighting crime. But he also does live action episodic entertainment for Heroenberg online, and you've got the actresses that dress up, and they basically enact chapters in between the chapters. So you can
that's really cool.
Watch the show or read the book. And the book will always be in mint condition because every single page is as thick as the cover. And it's 300-pound paper.
Very nice, very nice. So you've been doing some work with comic books. I'm turning the tides on your interview. Tell me about your work you've been doing with comic books.
Well, I've always been jealous of the people who can work in comics because I can't draw a stick figure. And while I've written some novels, I do have some stuff I'd like to turn into a graphic novel, but
yeah,
I can't afford to pay the artist, and so crowdfunding is still kind of out for me for that. But I interview all these people all the time, and I'm really good at spending other people's money for them.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, so it's like
and that's a gift.
It is, especially if you can talk them into doing it. But I'll be like, hey, you should put stickers on this. This image right here would be perfect for stickers. Let me introduce you to Sticker Mule and get my $10 referral fee. Or this character here would look great as a 3D animated or 3D print rather. Let me introduce you to George Gatzis here. He does 3D prints at cost for people who do crowdfunded comics, and you can sell them.
Yeah.
I started talking with people who are in the UK and in Australia, and the biggest impediment to people buying comics from them, because the biggest market is the U.S.
Yeah,
is that they're like, here's a crowdfunded comic. It's $20. Yeah, let me take that. Whoa, $25 for shipping.
Yeah.
Now it becomes untenable. I'm not just I can't justify that. And it was one of those moments where my mouth opened up and I was going to go into my, why don't you? And it was like a little mini me jumped on my shoulder and kicked me in the jaw and said, shut up. This is your time. This is your moment. So I sat down, I worked out a business plan because, 30 years of IT, some of that's actually been with logistics companies.
Yeah.
And I knew how to, work some of this up. And we opened up Critical Blast Logistics.
Which is really cool.
We have 3 clients, and it's we started with the one in Australia. And it's Kimasabi is how he goes on Twitter, the man called Kimasabi.
Okay.
He's got a book called The Company Men that looks really, really good. It looks like one of the good 90s action team comics that were out there at the time. And he's going to basically be drop shipping it to us, and then we're going to distribute it within the U.S. Domestically. But because of the way we put it all together, and taking advantage of different shipping techniques, instead of costing $25, we got it shipped for $12, which is
nice,
in line with what a lot of other people charge domestically for shipping. And having started that, we've actually had 2 other people come to us. One of them's domestic. I was like, time out. You know what I'm doing this for? I'm not saving you any money. In fact, I'm costing you money because I charge a fee. He's like, yeah, but it's time that I can spend writing a book instead of filling out boxes.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was like, why didn't I? Yeah, okay. So I'm like open to everybody.
Yeah, good for you.
We haven't figured out the totality of going the other direction yet. But I figured out the UK. I've got that one worked out.
Nice.
If I can get the last, pegs in place, we'll be able to ship to the UK for $12 to $15 per unit for a crowdfunded book. And if you've shipped overseas, paperbacks are like $25 already.
So to continue plugging, since I've taken over your interview for a second, where can people find these comic books?
Oh, these comic books they're all independent Indiegogo and Kickstarters. That's how they're doing them.
Do you like link to them on Twitter or your site? Or
I do link to them on Twitter all the time. I have not linked to them on the site. I really should, put something, like we have the button on our criticalblast.com page that's, logistics that explains the field. I could probably put some links at the bottom of there saying, hey, here's some of our clients that we're working with. I was kind of looking at something a little different, but that's still something I should do. So I'm going to take care of that tonight. But the next step in all of this, the whole evolution was that, once I've got, overships, because I encourage them to overship in case something's returned or they sell another one while they're in demand. But while I have inventory of the Company Men and the Embrace and Red Eyes 2, I'll have inventory and I can say, hey, local comic shop owner, I have imported hard to get comics that were crowdfunded that you can't get through Diamond. And by the way, you can get them all shipped in one box, so you only pay one shipping and pick them out a la carte. And they're going to cost a little bit more than they did when they were crowdfunded because, they're out of print now. So charge a couple of bucks extra on top of that, get the money for the book, give it back to the creator, make some money on shipping, and I'll be like a little mini Diamond.
Good. Well, that sounds like a great endeavor, and good luck.
Thank you. I'm kind of scared about it, but it's on paper. It keeps looking good. I keep watching these guys
it's a great
closer
idea.
and closer. they're all getting close to fulfilling, and I'm like, okay, any day now.
I'm sure it'll go fine.
I think it will too. What about you now? You don't have to do any fulfillment though, because or do you fulfill out of the house?
I do a little bit. It's not something I typically enjoy doing, and because shipping out like 20, 30 books is time consuming. But some readers like autographed copies or hardcover copies because I make sure my books are available in hardcover, and so I do it to make them available, and people appreciate it, and so I do a little bit. But usually it only is when I've got a new book coming out.
Now, you've still got the website, the gotangst.com, which, harkens back to your first series. Are you going to get a new URL for the Watson's Worlds?
Well, it's funny you should ask. So I actually got done revamping a lot of this a couple months ago. So I've got a new central hub for all of my sites called djprights.com. and
Heroin Bird's already found it and has put it into the chat.
There you go. And so that connects to Got Angst, which is my blog. And that connects to entrusonline.com, which is it's I wouldn't call it it's the site for the game, but it obviously isn't a real game. So it's kind of a play on that.
But it could be.
But that would be fun. But so, yeah, I've got a few sites, but I created DJP Rights as a hub to connect people to YouTube and to connect people to me and to connect people to, Got Angst and to find out all the stuff that I'm working on.
Have you, I know we talked about, you've got the books going to audiobook versions, but have you made any connections with the people who do like the Netflix deals and stuff like that? We kind of joked about how to make a great cartoon.
It would be fun. Series, I think I need to sell just a few more.
I know plenty of comic book creators who sold almost nothing and still got a first season Sci-Fi Channel deal on their stuff.
And that's true. Hey, it could happen. I would love to see that. It would be a lot of fun. But it's nothing I've pursued. I think Though I think I may have drunk emailed the CEO of Netflix once to tell him to make my book a movie. He never replied, so I figured then he didn't send the police, so I'm okay.
Okay, well, yeah, if you didn't get a reply or a restraining order, that's fine.
Yeah, but the email didn't bounce back, so I think I guessed the right email address.
Oh, so you were reverse engineering what it probably was based on other email addresses that went there?
Yes.
I've done that.
Yeah. Oops.
Hey, you don't get what you don't ask for.
Yeah, my wife says when I drink, I need to get off of Twitter and not order anything from Amazon.
You know how some judges put that breathalyzer thing hooked up to your steering column?
Yeah.
Onto the power supply on your PC.
Yeah, there's Christy. You drunk emailing? No way. So one night, you know who Lindsay Sterling is?
Yeah, I think so.
She's a violinist, very talented dancer, great performer. She does a lot of. I think I don't know if she still does. She's done a lot of EDM concerts and anyway, just check her out. I mean, her music is fantastic, and I was maybe a little more than tipsy one night when I had found her music, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. So I tweeted her, and she's got quite a fan following. Well, the next morning I wake up and I look at my phone. I'm like, why is Lindsay Sterling tweeting me? And she had replied, which I thought was really cool. And then I'm like, but I didn't remember right away that I had sent her a message. Fortunately, the messages I send are pretty tame.
Good. Yeah. Last thing you want is like, a string of messages followed by a block.
Yeah, no. The worst thing I do is say, "Wow, you're doing a great job. Thank you for your music."
Yeah, I've tweeted some people like that online before. People of renown, and they reply, and I feel like the cat meowing at the door is like, oh, I didn't really expect you to open the door. Yeah, nothing in here I really wanted.
Well, a good example is Christopher Leonard's, who's a really, really good composer. He's done a lot of music for movies and TV shows, and one of them is the Lost in Space series for Netflix. And so I had messaged him one day on Twitter, just saying, "Hey, I'm not expecting a response at all, but once in a while I'll message, say, a composer or an artist and say, hey, thank you for doing what you do. It's amazing." Because I'll listen to his music when I'm writing sometimes, and got a really nice response. And I thought that was cool because, not a lot of, I'm sure they all get inundated and, a lot of them set those messages aside, but once in a while when they make the effort, I don't know. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I've got the two Twitter accounts. And I used to use them religiously. My RJ Carter account was for like, when I'm trolling and want to just, I don't care what I say. and the Critical Blast one was like very brand specific. We're professional. I quit that. It's like,
I've noticed.
I was like, screw it. I don't care anymore. But I was on the personal account and I tweeted William Shatner and he retweeted me. And that was when I was like, well, I was on the wrong fucking account for that.
Yeah, I've done that too. But that's pretty cool that he did that. I like that.
Yeah, so that was when I started like, I'm doing everything on the business account now. I don't care anymore.
Yep. No, I keep my God Angst Twitter account pretty clean and straightforward. I thought about doing that for a while, just having a separate account that, where I spoke my mind, but I don't, because
you and Angie both followed me at one point and I was like, oh, you're going to regret this one.
Oh, no. Well, there are so many, I follow so many people on Twitter because I followed back everybody who followed me that it's hard to catch most messages to begin with. But yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter. There's a lot of angry people out there.
It is, isn't it? I mean, and it's gotten worse over the last, specifically over the last 6 years, really.
Yeah. But I social media, I just stay. I use it to keep in touch with friends and let people know what I'm writing, and that's it.
Yeah, I have a Facebook page. I barely ever use it now. I used to say that, Facebook was where you lied to your family and friends, and Twitter was where you were brutally honest with complete strangers.
That's funny.
And now we're just brutal, period. We don't.
I just use all those mediums to lie to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll, I can tell you're not on there that much because, I follow you and I don't see you on Twitter that often.
No, so. I sit down at night, and I'm like, so do I want to get lost down the Twitter, YouTube, Facebook rabbit hole, or should I write a book? Yeah. And I think people would more appreciate the book than nonsense spewing out of my mouth or fingers on social media. And so that's why I keep my focus on the writing.
And it really is a rabbit hole too. I mean, you use that analogy. I've gone in for things like, to go to YouTube because I wanted to find out about bridge construction because I was writing a book that, I was deconstructing some bridges. I'm like, I need to know the names of the pieces.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't just say nuts and bolts and look generic. And before you know it, it's like an hour and a half has gone by and I'm watching this guy grow a little man in a jar because he says he fertilized a chicken egg by himself. And I'm like, and it's moving. I'm like, is that special effects? What does this have to do with bridges? How did I get here?
Yeah, no, the YouTube rabbit hole is the easiest one to go down. But I if I start, then I don't get anything else done. So,
well, speaking of which, we've been in an hour and 17 minutes here, and I'm keeping you from getting things done beyond the show.
Hey, this has been fun, and it's been fun to touch base again.
It is.
Yeah, it's been nice.
I miss running into you guys at conventions now, but now I know that you go to Demicon and that it's in Iowa. I can stalk you there.
Oh, you totally should. Those people are just the best.
I've got to get, I've got unopened boxes of books myself now because the convention circuit died on us. So,
yeah.
Hoping they reopen.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. I really enjoyed this.
Well, I have too, David. It's been a pleasure talking with you again. And, don't be a stranger. When book 2 is ready to go out, come on then and we'll have a launch party or something.
I would love that. We'll make that happen. That would be a good time.
Fantastic. David, thanks so much for coming on. Everybody in the chat, appreciate you being here. As I always say, we don't have a show if you don't show up. And as always, we just hope you had a